The harvest table. A millionaire hired a humble farmer, and one day the businessman cried when he saw what he did. Part 1. The Separate Orchards. The 5:15 a.m. alarm was a shard of ice in the dark. Anya's hand, already calloused from the friction of mouse and metro strap, silenced it. In the lingering silence, she could almost hear the ghost of last night's dinner, the faint, greasy scent of cardboard-thin container lo mein, eaten while her eyes tracked numbers on a screen. Her apartment, all clean lines and muted grays, was a testament to efficiency, a machine for living and working. It held no echoes. 1,000 miles away, in a farmhouse that seemed to breathe with the land, her grandfather, Elias, stepped onto the porch as he had for 83 years. The screen door sighed shut behind him. He didn't need a clock. His bones knew the time from the texture of the darkness, the chorus of crickets yielding to the first tentative chirps of waking birds. He filled his lungs with air that tasted of damp soil, cut grass from yesterday's mowing, and the rich, sweet rot smell of the compost pile, a smell of transformation, of nothing being wasted. His hands, gnarled as old apple tree roots, rested on the railing, feeling the chill of the painted wood. Today, he would check the tomatoes for blight and tend to the blackberry brambles that grew in a wild, productive tangle at the property's edge. They were a relic, those brambles, planted by his own father. They asked for nothing and gave generously, a lesson in quiet abundance. Between them, in the suburban home that was both too big and too quiet now, Anya's father, Leo, moved through his own morning liturgy. The oatmeal was stirred with a methodical clink, clink, clink against the pot. The radio offered traffic reports for a commute he no longer made. His world had shrunk to a well-managed routine since retirement, a careful architecture of small tasks designed to keep a larger loneliness at bay. On his windowsill, a spider plant, a hopeful clipping from Elias's vast, decades-old mother plant, sported yellow-tipped leaves. Leo had watered it on schedule, given it measured light. Its struggle felt like a quiet reprimand. Their tether was Sunday, 7 p.m., a digital lifeline. Anya would balance her laptop on the one clear spot on her kitchen counter next to a dying succulent. Leo would polish his glasses and angle his tablet to hide the pile of unread magazines. Elias would settle into his armchair, the faded roses on the wallpaper behind him a familiar bloom. The ritual always began the same way. "What nourished you today, moi solnishko?" Elias would ask, his voice a warm, gravelly stream. Anya would laugh, holding up a kale and quinoa bowl. "Superfoods, Grandpa, full of antioxidants." He'd shake his head, a net of fine lines spreading from his eyes. "It has no song, that food. Leo, you must teach her. Food should have a melody." And Leo would launch in, his voice gaining animation as he described the perfect sear on a pork chop, the holy trinity of onions, carrots, and celery softening in butter, the precise bay leaf added at the right moment. His descriptions were detailed maps of a territory he could control. For Anya, these calls were a bittersweet decompression. For Leo, they were a proof of continuity. For Elias, they were attending, as vital as watering his seedlings. Part 2. The Fracture. Anya's professional life was a high-stakes game of digital Jenga. She was good at it, finding the loose block, the inefficiency, and extracting it without toppling the whole structure. Her new assignment was the pinnacle. Robert Thorne, founder of Thorne's Natural Provender, a grocery empire built on a narrative of pastoral purity. Thorne was a silhouette of sharp edges in his glass office. He spoke in bullet points. My brand is authenticity, he stated, his eyes scanning a financial report as he spoke to her. The story is family farms. The reality is margin. Your job is to make the story profitable. Find me the most reliable, cost-effective suppliers. Trim the sentimental fat. He was a man who had commodified the very essence of her grandfather's life. The dissonance was a sour note in her stomach. That Sunday, exhaustion made her brittle. He uses words like legacy and connection as search engine tags, she vented, pushing her delivery pad tie around its carton. He'd see Grandpa's garden as undeveloped real estate or a marketing photo shoot, not as a home. Elias listened, his hands resting on his knees. He was silent for so long that Anya wondered if the connection had frozen. Then he spoke, his words slow and deliberate. This man, he looks at a tree and sees board feet of lumber or the price of the apples. He does not see the shade it gives, the nest in its branches, the way its roots hold the earth against the rain. He has eyes for product, not for life. The crisis hit like a summer storm. A major organic berry supplier for Thorne's Midwestern stores failed an audit. Pesticides. The news sent seismic waves through the company. Backup suppliers tripled their prices. The story of purity was about to shatter very publicly right before the peak summer sales window. Robert Thorne summoned Anya to the terrarium office. The air was cold enough to see her breath. The board is having kittens, he said, his voice dangerously calm. We have 3 days until the shelves are bare and the headlines write themselves. Find a solution. He didn't say or else. He didn't need to. It hung in the chilled air between them. That night, desperation tasted like cheap coffee and fear. Scrolling through agricultural databases, her eyes blurry, she saw a photo of wild blackberries. A memory surfaced, vivid and sudden, the sun-warmed, bursting sweetness of a berry picked from her grandfather's bramble, the purple stain on her child-sized fingers, his laughter as he showed her how to find the darkest, heaviest ones. The idea was absurd. It was a fantasy. With a trembling hand, she called him. It was past his bedtime. "Grandpa? Anya?" His voice was alert, concerned. "You are working too late." "I know. Grandpa, your blackberries, the wild ones at the back, how many are there?" A soft chuckle. "Enough that the rabbits get fat and the birds sing tipsy songs. Why, are you coming for a visit? I will save you a bowl." Tears pricked her eyes. "No, I need hundreds of pounds by Thursday for a client." The silence was a physical thing, stretching across the miles. She could picture him, sitting up in his bed, the moonlight through his window falling on his worn quilt. "It is for the millionaire," he stated finally. "Yes." Another pause. "Berries are delicate, Solnishko. They are not boxes to be shipped. They are a moment. To pick them right, you must be gentle. You must be present. It is a how job, not a what job." Her hope, a tiny, fragile bud, withered. "I understand. It's an impossible ask." "I did not say impossible," Elias corrected, his voice firming. "It requires a different kind of work. Let me see what can be done." Part 3. The How. The next 36 hours were a blur of anxious inertia for Anya. Thorne's terse check-in emails were like darts hitting her inbox. She had no updates. She imagined her grandfather, a lone, bent figure in a vast field, picking one perfect berry at a time. It was a beautiful, futile image. Wednesday evening, as a migraine began its familiar throb at her temples, her phone rang. It was Leo, and he was breathless, a sound she'd never heard from her methodical father. "Anya, the warehouse, Bay 3. You need to come now. Your grandfather, he's here." Her mind blanked. Here? He hadn't left the county in a decade. She drove through the neon-lit arteries of the city, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. Bay 3 was a cavern of concrete and cool refrigerated air. and in the middle of it, under the sterile glare of industrial lights, was a living, breathing diorama of everything Robert Thorne's brand pretended to be. At its center was Elias's ancient, mud-spattered pickup. Its bed was a jewel box of wooden crates, each brimming with immaculate, dewy blackberries. But it was the constellation of people around it that stole Anya's breath. Her father, Leo, had traded his khakis for an old pair of jeans. He was carefully, reverently transferring flats of berries onto a shipping pallet, his accountant's mind creating a perfect, stable stack. And beside him, directing with a gentle point and a finger, was Elias in his overalls and his billed cap, looking not out of place, but like the rooted center of a suddenly flourishing world. Flowing towards them was a human river. Mrs. Henderson from Elias's Road, in her wide-brimmed gardening hat, carried a laundry basket lined with a clean sheet. The Chen family from Leo's block were there, their teenage sons carefully bearing plastic totes. Mr. Petrovsky from the local hardware store, a man Leo helped with his taxes, held a cardboard box. Anya even saw her own former piano teacher, Miss Ellis, holding a large mixing bowl like a sacred offering. They moved in a quiet, efficient ballet, forming lines from their open car trunks, passing containers hand to hand. There was laughter, soft and communal, not the loud, transactional kind of office parties. This was the sound of shared purpose. Leo spotted her, his face smudged with dust, but lit from within. He hurried over. "He called me yesterday," he said, his voice thick. He said, "Lavushka, we have a how job. It requires many hands." So I called mine. He gestured around. "I told them about the berries, about your crisis. Mrs. Chen brought figs as a gift. Mr. Petrovsky offered his van. We all went out there, to the farm in the neighbors' plots. We picked all day. Everyone who knew how taught those who didn't. We talked, we told stories." Elias walked to her. He took her hands in his. They were a landscape of scratches and deep purple stains, a map of labor and love. "The berries from my land," he said, quietly, for her ears only. "They were the seed, but a seed alone is just a promise. Your father, he found the fertile soil." He looked at the gathering, his old eyes bright. "The how, my darling girl, is always community. It is looking up from your own row and seeing the whole field." Part 4. The Harvest. The sleek, black sedan purred into the bay, a predator entering an unfamiliar ecosystem. Robert Thorne emerged, his tailored suit a declaration against the backdrop of crates and casual wear. His face was set in the cold mask of impending fury, ready to dismantle this amateur operation. He strode forward, his eyes taking in the pickup truck, the old farmer, the makeshift assembly line of ordinary citizens with their Tupperware and tired, happy faces. He saw the meticulous palette Leo was building. He saw the sheer, staggering volume of perfect berries, each one a testament to hand-picked care. He saw the Chen's boys high-fiving over a full tote, and Mrs. Henderson pressing a jar of her own strawberry jam into Elias's hands. "For your trouble." Thorne opened his mouth, the cutting remark on his tongue, and then his eyes, those eyes that had spent a lifetime assessing value, calculating return, seeing people as variables, landed on Elias's hands as they gently adjusted a crate. They lingered on the network of scratches, the ground-in stain of ripe fruit, the gentle strength with which they supported the wood. He looked from those hands to the face of his logistics analyst, Anya, who was crying silent tears of overwhelming gratitude, to the proud, straight back of Leo, who had organized this miracle. The anger didn't just fade, it shattered. It fell away from him like a brittle shell, revealing something raw and astonished beneath. His jaw worked. He blinked rapidly, turning his head aside, but not before everyone in the hushed bay saw it, the gleam of a tear catching the fluorescent light as it escaped down his cheek. It was followed by another. He wasn't weeping for the saved contract or the fruit. He was mourning the barren orchard of his own life. He had spent millions to buy the story of this, the connection, the shared labor, the legacy that smelled of soil and not of profit margins. And here it was, real and fragrant and utterly unbuyable, built in a day by an old man and a retired accountant and a neighborhood for no reason other than it was the only way to do the work. He turned back, his voice stripped of all its arrogant armor, hoarse with emotion. This, he gestured weakly, at the bounty, is the most authentic product that will ever bear my label. He looked directly at Elias, with the respect of one master recognizing another in a completely different field. Sir, please, name your price, whatever you want. Elias wiped his hands on his overalls. He looked at his son, then at his granddaughter, drawing them close with his gaze. He smiled, a smile that held the patience of seasons. The price has already been paid, he said, softly, for her ears only, in shared meals over a fence, in phone calls on Sundays, in driving a friend to a farm, in teaching a child how a berry comes off the stem. He placed a stained hand on Leo's shoulder and reached out to squeeze Anya's arm. My payment is standing right here. It is a rich harvest, indeed. Part 5. The New Season. The Sunday call the following week was different. The same screens, the same faces, but the space between them hummed with a new, quiet energy. "And what did you eat today?" Elias asked, his eyes crinkling. Anya held up a simple white bowl. "Blackberries, Grandpa, just blackberries." She ate one slowly, letting the complex sweetness of sun, of collective effort, of love fill her senses. "I made a pie," Leo said proudly, angling his camera to show a perfect latticed crust. "Used the ones we set aside." Behind him, the spider plant on the windowsill was erupting with vibrant green runners and tiny white blooms. He'd been talking to it about the berry pick, about the feel of the sun on his back that day. In his minimalist penthouse, Robert Thorne ate a late dinner. On his plate, beside artisan cheese and crusty bread, was a small bowl of blackberries. He ate one, then closed his eyes. For the first time in 30 years, he wasn't thinking about market share or branding. He was tasting a memory he never actually had, but now desperately wished to build. The story was never about a millionaire hiring a farmer. It was a farmer, through the silent, steadfast language of his life, hiring a millionaire's heart back from the brink. It was a reminder that the most resilient crops, belonging, resilience, connection, aren't grown in isolated, efficient rows, but in the messy, interconnected, gloriously inefficient soil of everyday people choosing, moment by moment, the how of kindness, and that the richest tables are built not by one pair of hands, but by many, passing the harvest and the story along.